Hi, Morning Star. Good afternoon, good evening, good day to all of you who are joining us for this Wednesday Bible study meditation. I'm excited to be with you. In the absence of our pastor, Reverend Earl Jones Jr., he asked me to come on and to just offer the reflection on our Bible study lesson for today. And as many of you know, we are still studying the fruit of the Spirit. For those of you who do not have the book, this is the book. It's called Fruit of the Spirit, and it's 48 Bible studies looking at all the fruits of the Spirit. And we've been doing it all year, having a great time in our individual classes. We have our young adult class, our women's class, and our men's class. And we also have our class at noon with our seniors. And you can find all that information online. But we are now looking at kindness. And this is our second week of studying this fruit of the Spirit, kindness. And specifically, we're looking at it from the perspective of showing kindness to others. And the two focal scriptures are coming from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verses 40 through 42, and the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 33 through 37. And in studying this lesson, I think there's so much that we're going to get out of it. So I encourage all of you, after you watch this short broadcast, that you join our Bible study classes. Like I said, we have one for our seniors at noon, and then we have our evening classes at 7 p.m. But when I looked at this lesson, just the idea of talking about kindness, right? Being kind, I realized that I believe to call someone kind, it's probably one of the greatest compliments you could give them. Because when you think about it, if you ever describe someone and say, oh, that person is so kind, it really gives you a warm feeling inside. Even if you don't know the person, if someone tells you that, oh, you don't know this person, but they are so kind. If you meet them, you'll see how kind he is. You'll see how kind she is. It just connotes an idea of a person who is warm, who is considerate, who maybe is oftentimes concerned about other people's well-being, right? They're kind, so they're not going to say harsh words to you. You will probably leave that person's presence feeling better than when you first met them, right? And so looking at this fruit of the Spirit, we're all working on cultivating all of the fruits of the Spirit. And right now we are delving into how to cultivate this fruit called kindness. And so I first want to start by reading Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 and 42. And we'll look at that a little bit, and then we'll dive into Mark chapter 9. And so Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42 says, whoever welcomes you welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward. Now, listening to that, there's so much, there's a lot in there, right? And what I want to really focus on is this whole idea of what's happening first in the text is Jesus is sending his disciples out. He's sending them out into the mission field, right? This is part of our Great Commission as disciples of Christ. We identify as being disciples, and God has called us to go and make more disciples, to go and spread the good news of who Jesus Christ is, right? And so he sent his disciples out into the mission field, and he says to them that anyone who receives you, anyone who welcomes you, they're also welcoming me. And not just me, Christ, they're also welcoming the one who sent me. And who is that? That's God the Father. And so I was thinking about if I was one of those disciples in Jesus' day, and he says this to me, when they receive you, it's like they're receiving God into their home. They're receiving God into their heart. I thought about the fact that the disciples could get a big head. I could get a big head, right? People can develop a God complex when they have when we have an understanding that we are God's representatives. And when people are kind to us, when people are hospitable to us, really they're being hospitable to God. They're welcoming God into their home, into their heart, into their life, into their lifestyle. But some of us could get a warped sense of who we are, because we can get a puffed up idea that, yeah, I'm big and bad because I am God's representative. And when people receive me, they receive God. We can get a distorted image of who we are. We can get an inflated sense of our status in society because we represent God. And so I want to look at this text and really have us all consider that when we read this, they tell us that the word cuts like a two-edged sword, right? It cuts both ways. And so we can look at it from the perspective of, yes, I am God's representative. And when people receive me, they're receiving God. But then we have to flip that the other way and say, when we are kind to other people, when we are not only are we God's representatives, but the people who we encounter are also God's representatives. And the word tells us that we might be entertaining angels unaware. We don't know who the people are that we're interacting with, that it may very well be an angel of God. It may very well be God's representative. And so we have to look at, not that people should be so lucky to have us in their presence, right? We are blessed to be in the presence of other people. And in that, we need to treat people with kindness, because it's not just us who are so blessed to have this connection with God. We all are children of God. And so we can't get a big head. And sometimes Christians, we can get really puffed up in who we are, and we can be very holier than thou and look down at certain people like they're beneath us. But really, in this text, Jesus says, if you would give just the least of these a cup of water, one of the little ones a cup of water, right? Then you really are doing that to me. It's like you are refreshing God, right? You are being kind to God, but we are being kind to God's children. That is our calling, to be kind to others, and all others. We don't get to pick and choose, right? And so I really wanted us to think about that in terms of our personalities and our opinions of ourselves as Christians. Sometimes we get a big head. And I believe that it could happen, and it did happen in the text with the disciples, because we know the disciples on more than one occasion, they had gotten into disputes with each other about who was the greatest of them all. Right. And so as I mentioned that, I want to jump to Mark chapter 9, verses 33 through 37. And it says, then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, and this is Jesus, when Jesus was in the house, he asked the disciples, what were you arguing about on the way? But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another who was the greatest. Jesus sat down, called the 12, and said to them, whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all. Then he took a little child and put it among them And taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." This is the reading of God's word. And so we look at this, the disciples got a big head, right? Because they have this close relationship with God. They've been doing ministry with Jesus for quite a while. They've witnessed Jesus doing these miracles, and they've just seen such miraculous things, such amazing things, and they are connected with Jesus. People know them for being Jesus' disciples, for following with Jesus. They are part of Jesus' entourage, right? For lack of a better word. And so they start to get an inflated image or perception of themselves, and they're arguing with each other about which one of them is the greatest. And we see this here in Mark chapter 9, but we also see in Luke chapter 22 at the Last Supper that they lose focus on what they're there for, and they start again arguing about who of them is the greatest. And Jesus says to them, "You have this all mixed up in your mind. You have this all mixed up in your head. If you want to be great, you actually have to serve." Because a lot of people have this concept that greatness, um, if you have a certain status in society, that people are here to serve you. Right? People are here to roll out the red carpet for you, and they should just be falling over themselves to serve you, to get you whatever you want, whatever you need. But Jesus is telling them that no, that you have the wrong idea of what greatness really looks like. And if you want to be great, then you have to be last. You're not going to be the first. You're going to be last. And you're not going to be the one who is being served, because greatness is not about how many people come to serve you. Greatness really is about how many people have you served. And so Jesus says, if you want to be great, then you need to serve the least of these. And he picks up a child, right? And in the text, it says they never identified the gender of the child. So it could have been a boy child or a girl child. And we know back then in the patriarchal society, there was this image of like boys had a greater value than girls. But even then, back in those days, children in general weren't really revered. They were considered socially invisible, almost like a non-person. Kids really didn't matter that much in society. They had no social value. It wasn't until they became adolescents, right? And that's when they really were seen to be as adults, when they were able to work, but able to marry. So at that time, children really had no social capital at all. And so Jesus picks up this child and says that if you want to be great, then you have to be like this child, right? He says, he took up a child, put it among them, and taking him into his arms, said, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me." And what that says is that Jesus identifies with the lost, with the lonely, with the overlooked, right? With the outcast of society. That's who Jesus equates himself with. Not, we think it's all this with the, like we just saw the funeral for Queen Elizabeth, and all the pomp and circumstance was beautiful, how they revered this monarch who reigned for over 70 years, right? But Jesus is saying the greatest of all of us is a little child. And a child represents dependence, right? And powerlessness. And God is saying, I liken myself to a child. So if you want to be great, you got to humble yourself. And so when we think about this idea of how we're going to cultivate kindness within us, what does that mean? It means that we need to show care and concern for everybody. That we don't look at certain people as being deserving of kindness, right? We shouldn't see that there are some people who are more important than others. We have to constantly remind ourselves that it's in the least of these, whatever we identify, and whoever we identify as the least, that is who Jesus is concerned about. And we, as God's disciples, we should be concerned about them too. Because at any time, any of those people, we could be entertaining angels unaware. And so wherever we are, we have to show kindness to people, even when it's inconvenient, because that's when it's most difficult, right? Is when we are busy, we are caught up in our lives and all the things that we have going on. Do we have time to be kind to the beggar on the street who, while we're at a light, they're coming and knocking on our window asking for change? Now, sometimes we say no because we don't have it or we feel like we're not safe. But if you have it and it's okay to do so, will you help this person? Will you show kindness? And even if you don't have anything to give in terms of monetarily, can you show that person respect? Can you show them love? Can you show that person God's love? This beggar on the street with dirty clothes who smells really bad, can we be kind? Then can we treat them just as well as we would someone like Queen Elizabeth? Sometimes it may be the person at our job who annoys us the most, that chatty coworker who just drives you crazy, right? Can you be kind to that person, even though it pains you? Can you be kind? Because kindness is something that we show even in times of inconvenience, right? We're not always going to get it right. We're not always going to be perfect, I know. But at the end of the day, can we say that I was kind to someone today? I showed respect. I showed love. I showed consideration to somebody today. And not just the people in my circle, my family and my friends, but could I do it for a stranger? Could I do it for the least of these? Because we have to abandon our notion of what social status is, because Jesus does not care about our titles. Jesus does not care about social status at all, because our social status can get us courtside seats at Madison Square Garden, but our social status can't get us a Christ side seat in heaven. And so we have to make sure that we are focused on the right things. And at the heart of it, as disciples, if we're going out there and we're going out there to win souls for Christ, you will not win any souls if you're a mean and nasty person. Kindness will get you way further than being mean and nasty or being indignant or being so high and mighty and so super spiritual. At the end of the day, we have to remember that kindness is what people need today. We don't know what people are dealing with. We have no idea of all of what people deal with on a daily basis. Life is happening at rapid speed. People are dealing with so much, and everybody at any time of day could use a kind word. And can we be the person who does that? Can you do a random act of kindness? And that's what I want to challenge all of you with this week. I want you to do a random act of kindness for someone who would not expect it. Maybe it's someone who you don't even know. But I don't want you to just do one act of kindness. I want you to practice acts of kindness. Send a text message to someone and saying, I've been thinking about you. You're in my prayers. Call me if you need me. If you see someone, you're going to buy some food through the drive-thru, if you have some extra change, why not pay for the person's meal behind you? Do something today. Do something this week to show kindness to someone, to show God's love to someone, because your act of kindness could be what someone needs to know that God has not forgotten about them. It may be what gives someone hope to hold on just a little while longer. And so I just want to leave you with this last thought that we ought to be kind. Why? It doesn't cost us anything. Kindness is free, but kindness is also priceless. So be kind today and be a blessing to someone today. Thank you so much, Morning Star. And go to your classes. And I want y'all to dig into this lesson. That's what Pastor always says, right? I want y'all to dig into this lesson. I want y'all to chop it up a little bit more in your classes. Have a good time. And I will see you all on Sunday. Love you.